Boker Tov, today's daf is daf Samach in Baba Kams. We learn for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael. It says the Mishnah on daf Samach. Hashleich is a bearer. A person, let's say he allows his fire. A man started a fire in his own yard, his own field, for whatever purpose he had. He wanted to burn some trash or whatever, and then the fire went to somebody else's field. So it went over there. And we're going to talk about this. That the concept is that if my animal does damage, or my some of my possession did damage. I had a wagon. The wagon went in somebody else's field or something. That's my property that did damage. That's one halacha. What about if I did it myself? If I hit somebody, I have to pay. What about fire? Is that like my action, or is that like my property that went? That's going to be discussion. So we had that mentioned. We mentioned it back in Daf Hayomi. I think it was that Isho, the fire is like your own koch. It's like you shot an arrow. When I shot an arrow, you don't say, I didn't touch it. It was my arrow that did damage, like my animal. No, that's your own power. And the same thing with the fire, as we'll see. So let's say you allowed your fire to go damage something else. But ochla ate some and it consumed wood, avanim, or stones. We'll talk about stones, or even dirt. Chayiv shenem, you have to pay. Shenem kiseitze. The pasuk says, fire goes out of matzah kotzim and finds thorns. V'nechel garish, and it consumes the stack of grain, or even standing grain that's in the field, wheat, barley, whatever. Asada, or the field itself. That means even the dirt, etc. Sham mavras abera. The one who started the fire, he has to pay for it. Now, again, we'll see later on, because the pasuk says like it went out by itself, so to speak, and yet he's called the mavir. So again, when it comes to a fire is like shooting an arrow. A fire is not like my shore or my wagon or my property went and did damage to somebody else. It's like my own action. And the difference would be that you have all five things. Nezek, Sari, Shepes, and Boshes. If my animal did damage to somebody, I got to pay Nezek. I got to pay for whatever he devalued, whatever damage was done. But there's no Sari, Shepes, and Boshes. But if I caused a fire, it's like I did it myself. It's like I took a knife or shot it. Today we would say shot a gun. You shot a gun or shot an arrow, that's your own action. It's not like your property. I didn't shoot him. The rifle shot him. You don't look at it that way. You're pulling the trigger. Amarava. Why did I have the pasuk have to say Kotsim, Gadish, Kamavasar, all these things that he says, and it consumed thorns, a stack, a standing corn that's still in the ground. The field. What if the field? What if down the street? You need all because of Rahmana, because we say if we would say thorns. I mean the Kotsim Udachaya Rahmana. Hashem said you have to pay for fire there if your fire consumed the thorns. Because people usually leave thorns around the fire, because thorns are anyway going to be burnt up anyway. That's what people do with thorns. They burn them. So you figure, there you're more lackadaisical and you might leave the fire there. So there you should pay. It's very common to be negligent with fire near thorns, because you're going to usually people use them for firewood. They're going to burn them anyway. You can't do much with thorns. But if you have a stack of wheat, people don't leave fire near wheat. That'll destroy their wheat. It's like leaving fire next to your cash. And it's not normal, not common to be negligent with that. So I think, if the fire consumed the stack, you didn't really mean to do that, and therefore you're not chayiv that. Kamashma, you're chayiv for that too. If your fire consumed, whether it's thorns, whether it's a stack of grain, because Rachmana Gadish, if we only say a stack of grain, having made a Gadish chayiv, Rachmana Mishum, they have some ruah. There's a big loss there. You lost all the grain. Avokotsim, they have some ruah. Thorns aren't worth much anyway, so they're standing to be thrown out or discarded anyway. Maybe maybe should be chayiv if your fire burns down. What did I burn down? I burned down some thorns. Big deal. Mashma, you chayiv for that too. Kamalamli, what about standing corn, standing wheat? In other words, wheat that's still growing in the field. Why does it have to tell me that for? Obviously, you should be chayiv there. It says, Ma'kom Avgali, teach me that fire is only chayiv just like on standing grain is exposed. Your chayiv, your guy has standing corn, I expose that. Avkol Avgali, like we had before, that your putter, if let's say somebody stuck their cash underneath a stack of corn or underneath a cover, and your fire burnt the cash, your putter on that according to Rabbanan, because if it's tummin, if it's hidden, fire's not chayiv. You're only chayiv on something which is exposed. So that's why he tells me standing corn. Tell me it's got to be exposed. What about according to Buda? Buda says he disagrees. We'll have him in the next couple of days. That according to Buda, the mechayiv is kitam beish. He says no. You're chayiv even for hidden things when it comes to fire. So why did it say kama? So come alamali, the rabbis called they say you're chayiv on anything that's standing, even if it's not something that grows in the ground. Rashi says called afbalechayim bilanos, or it grows in the ground if it's a tree. Chayiv on a tree, you're chayiv even on animals which are standing up. The Talmud kama, Oba kama mean anything standing, whether it's grain, whether it's a tree, whether it's an animal. Rabbanan rabbis called by kama. How do the Rabbanan know that? Rav Yehuda says kama is to teach me even anything standing, and even if it's hidden, you're also chayiv. But kama is to teach me anything standing. How do the Rabbanan know anything standing? Well, naflu may oha kama, because it says oha kama. Right? Oha kama means anything, not only the grain, not only grain that's in the ground that's exposed, but the extra O teaches me that you're chayav for anything standing, including animals too. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda says that O, what is O for? According to Rabbi Yehuda, he already knows anything standing from Hakama. So what does O teach me? Oh, to tell me you don't have to have both. You don't say you might maybe say you're only chayav on fire if it both consumed stacks of grain and something standing in the ground. Maybe only no. O teaches me no, either or. It doesn't have to be both. But Rabbanan l'chalik. So how do the Rabbanan know that you're chayav on each and every one? You don't have to have all of them together. It says naflu mi o hasadeh, because it says again the pasuk is quoted in the Mishnah. Look at the Mishnah. O hasadeh. There's an extra O there. That teaches me l'chalik. Rabbi Yehuda. So what does Rabbi Yehuda do with extra O? If he learns the first O, if he says the first O is l'chalik, so what does he do with the second? I says either kasar rachmana o hakama, kasar rachmana o hasada. Okay, that's why O hasada. Since it says the first one O to teach me l'chalik, so it mentions also O hasada just for the grammar to look the same. But it makes sense to read it. O nechel garish O hakama O hasada. But really, there's no limud from there's no special limit from the second O O hasada. There's no special limit from there. All right, so that's as far as how we have all these. What about the last word, sadalamali? Okay, we understood why we said thorns to tell me that even you're chayiv on thorns which aren't worth much, and you're chayiv on a stack of grain because you might think you're not chayiv because people don't usually fire there. Kamash when you chayiv there too. Hakama teaches me even things that are either things that are only things that are exposed according to Rabbanan, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, anything standing. Okay, and how does Rabbi Yehuda know? How does Rabbanan know anything standing from Rabbi Yehuda? In other words, Rabbanan know anything standing from O. Rabbi Yehuda says O is l'chalik, and Rabbanan say the second O is l'chalik, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, the second O doesn't teach me anything. But what do you have to say sada for at all? If you're chayiv on anything standing, including grain, and you're chayiv on stacks and you're chayiv on thorns, what does sada teach me? If your fire, let's say you had a plowed field, there's nothing growing in the field now, it's just plowed. But there's some damage if the fire went and licked the whole field, and singed it, you're chayiv on that too, it did damage. Or if it charred stones, can't then destroy stones, but it chars them. You're chayiv on that too. That's a question of sada. So just say sada. Tell me if you're chayiv even for a fire singeing and charring stones and dirt. So you chayiv because of sada. If we only say sada, I might think only things that are in the field, only stuff that's exposed that's out in the field, like grain, but not the karka itself. Not the karka itself. Things that are in the field, like karka. Right? That's why it says kama to teach me anything standing, including grain, etc. And when it says sada to teach me the earth, because if it would only say earth, I would say sada means stuff growing in the field, but not the earth itself or the stones there. Having made a master basada, a media friend, and now we're going to do drushes from these psukim. Punishment only comes to the world and when there's Risham in the world. When punishment comes to the world, like call it a Shoah, when a destruction comes, when punishment comes to the world, it only comes when there are Risham, but it starts with the tzaddikim. The tzaddikim are removed first. Like when a fire goes out, meaning when destruction comes, right? When fire comes out and it finds thorns. So when does a fire go out? When does destruction come to the world? When there are thorns in the world, meaning Rishon. But it starts with the tzaddikim, the righteous people, the good stuff, the stack of grain, that's consumed. first, so to speak. It doesn't say it will consume the good stuff. As soon as a fire starts, it only starts because there's a Risham in the world, but it first consumes the Risham. Tanur Rav Yosef, Midah we'll see why is that. Why is it? Why does it destroy the tzaddikim first? We'll come to that. Tanur Rav Yosef, Midah Siv, Batam Lo Siv Ish Pesach ad Boker. Right, Michael? This is coming up soon, right? Right? Batem Lo Teitzu, don't leave your house until the morning. Of course, this is the Yitzias Mitzrayim. Once the destroyer is given permission to destroy, meaning like the Malach Mavis, doesn't make any difference between the Siddiq and Mishram. This is how you understand the Shoah. Once there's Rishus to destroy, everybody's destroyed. It starts with Siddiqim first. I will cut off from you tzaddik and Rosh. He says tzaddik first. I will cut off everybody from you. Yosef cried, Kuli hai nami la'ayindam, so much so that we're compared to nothing. Rashi says, Klomer lahevel chashuv matzadikim shekodim for us. I mean, I understand, okay, Hashem lets the mashras out and you destroy everybody, destroy the world, destroy the good people in the people. But why that we're considered so nothing that we have to destroy first? It's good for them. Since they're going to be destroyed anyway, it's better they should be destroyed first. The Chsivit says, Pasuk says, the tzaddik perishes, is gathered up first so that he shouldn't have to suffer the evil that's going to come later on. Shiur bara hasida, that he shouldn't have to suffer and see the evil that's going to come later on. That's possibly, like I say, a lot of the Chavetz Chaim and other great tzaddikim were killed, but died before the Shoah. They shouldn't have to see that. Amar b'Yom La'olam, of course, we cannot understand Hashem's ways, but this is what La'olam yikanas adam b'chitav. A person should always enter, meaning find lodgings. B'chitav while it's still light outside. Tov is called light. Is called while it's still light outside. It's called it says bayi or be'arol gemes or ki tov. Right? Or it says ki tov. It's good. It's good to have light. So ki tov is a lotion of light. So you should always find, if you're on the road, find lodgings while it's still light outside. Don't wait till it gets dark. You should leave in the morning after first light. Shenemar Batem lo teitzu ish mi pesach ad boker. Shouldn't leave the house in the morning until. Don't leave at night when things are bad, when the Malachim office is there, killing the firstborns. Don't leave the house until the morning when it's light. Dever ba'ir kanes raglecha. Remember this Gemara from 4 years ago when the when Corona started, when the COVID started. Dever ba'ir, when there is an epidemic or a pandemic in the city, kanes raglecha, gather in your feet. In other words, go inside. When there is pestilence or a dever or everybody's being killed, go inside. We stay inside. But the Pasuk says, Lech ami, go my people, or come into your rooms, and you close the door after you. The Pasuk says, from outside, the sword will cause bereavement, and fear, inner fear from the rooms itself. My bummer, what do I need all these psukim for? Just say if there's an epidemic, stay inside. My bummer, what do you need these extra psukim? The first pasuk says, don't leave the house until the morning. Okay, so don't go outside at night. In the day, there's no problem. Tashma no, go into your rooms and score the lasecha, which is what we did at the beginning of COVID. Stay inside, don't go out, right? And close your doors. But that's only when there's no fear inside too. Your relatives, whatever did, like the Malcham Abbas is so petrifying that there's fear of him wherever you are. Rashi says Amos Malcham Abbas. He's not so obvious. So I might think, maybe we should go inside when there's no fear inside of. If you're afraid even to be indoors because of the terrible pandemic. Kinofik Yosef Beinich, it's better to go outside, sit among people, but sapsa in a group with a team. Maybe that's better. In other words, when should you go inside even during the day when there's no fear inside? But if there's a fear inside, maybe you're better off going outside and sitting among people and getting some camaraderie there. Maybe that's better. If you're Tashma, maybe even though there's fear inside, outside and inside there's an inner fear that you can't see, but outside it's like the sword will cause you bereavement. Rava beaten brisra in a time of anger. Rashi calls that dever. It's time meaning when Hashem is when it's riskable, when Hashem is like angry, lets the Malachim of us run loose. That's what we mean by an epidemic when people are dying en masse. Have a socher kave. He would close the windows. Death has come in through our windows, so he would close the windows. That's what he socher kave sasam kalonas. Talking about Rav here. If there is a famine in the city, spread your legs, meaning run, leave the city. When there was a famine, Abram went down to Mitzrayim to go for food. Lagusham. The Omer Pasuk says, "Imamarnu navo ir." This is by the former Tzabram Gechasi, the story in Tanakh. Imamarnu navo. If we come into the city, and there'll be a famine in the city, Masasham, we're going to die there for sure. Maiva Omer. What do you need the extra pasuk? When should you go down? When should you leave the city? When there's a famine? When going to the other place is better. In Mitzrayim, they had food, so you're better off going there where there's definitely food. But over here, in the case of Gechasa, he said, even if when we go there, there might be death there too. When there's no question of death, there's no pikuach nefesh in the place you're going to. But when there's famine in this city, you might find food in the other city. They might kill you over there too. Should you do that too? No. Even then, let's go. Hand ourselves over, right? Let's turn ourselves into machneram. Maybe they'll let us live. We'll live. Meaning, even though they might kill us, right? And there might be a famine there, they might kill us because they don't want to give us any food. But over here, we're for sure going to die. So the point is that when there's a famine, run. Even if the place you're running to is not for sure that you're going to be safe. Pardon? Bari and Shefa, right? Yeah, right. This is here for sure you're going to die. Dever Ba'ir, if there is an epidemic in the city, people are dying in multitudes. Don't walk in the middle of the road. When Hashem is allowed, when there's anger in the world and Hashem has allowed the Malachim Eves to run free, don't walk in the middle of the street because that's where the Malachim Eves is hanging out. Even the Avle Rishusa, once he's been given permission to kill, he goes right, he walks right openly in the middle of the street. Shalom Ba'ir, when there's peace in the city, when things are good, don't walk on the side of the road. Given less of Rishusa, since the Malachim Eves there doesn't have a free hand to kill whoever he wants. He hides, meaning he walks along the side of the road and doesn't walk openly in the middle of the road. First of the wide lines. Dever Ba'ir, if there is an epidemic in the city, you shouldn't go into a shul by yourself. Why? He leaves his tools there, his armaments. He leaves his kelis. But that's only if children aren't learning there. Or people, there's no minion there. So a minion there is okay, but that's when a Malachim Eves leaves his kelim in the shul. If there's nobody there, that's where he hides his kelim. So when there's an epidemic, don't go into the shul by yourself because you might get caught by the Malachim Eves. A lot of drushes about that. It's one of the drushes I remember from the beginning was that the epidemic comes because of talking in shul. Needless talk. I'm not going to say what's necessary, have an aliyah or something related to the davening, whatever. But I'm just stam talking can lead, can lead to an epidemic. Klav and bochim, if the dogs are howling and crying, Malachim Eves baldi, that's a sign that the Malachim Eves is coming. When you hear dogs howling, they're crying out. Klav mesachim, if they're laughing, if they're laughing, I don't know how you can tell if the dog is laughing, but I guess the dog owners must know. Klav mesachim, nobody's coming to say the that's only if there's no female dog there. If there is a female dog, then they're howling or crying or whatever they're doing because of the dogs. Yosef Ravami, the dogs are in Shidduchim then. Yosef Ravami Ravasi. Ravami and Ravasi were sitting around. That's right. They were explaining to children when you hear the cats, you hear the cats call them and eat. They're explaining to the children, what do you mean? What do you mean? Why are they doing that? What do you mean they're in eats? The cats are in Shidduchim now. That's how you explain the Shidduchim. Yosef Ravami Ravasi come out of Yitzchak Nafa. Ravami and Ravasi, these two rabbis who were contemporaries, were sitting in front of Rav Yitzchak Nafa. Ma'ar Amalei, one said to Rav Yitzchak Nafa, do me a favor, Rabbi, Leima Mashmai, to teach us a halacha. Teach us something in a ruling in halacha. I want to hear some real halacha. So no, teach us a narrative. Teach us a story that has a good a good lesson. Pasach l'meimar agadata. So you started to say agadata, which is the second thing he was asked to do. The first one says no, I don't want to hear that. Pasach l'meimar shmaita. Then he starts to say halachic ruling. And the other one didn't let him. Amar lahem. He says neither one of you are letting me start. I can't say this. I can't say that. I'll give you an example. What's this comparable to? A man has two wives, right? He's got a young wife and he's got an older wife, right? Sekena, Sayoldim, like it's a little Venice. So the young wife pulls out his white hair. She wants to have a young husband, right? She sees the young woman. She's embarrassed by his white hair. Sekena, the older one, who herself has gray hair, pulls out his black hair, right? Black hair. So he's bald. He's bald on all sides because each one is pulling out the hairs that they don't like. You're not letting me get anywhere. I'll tell you what. If that's the case, I'll tell you something. I'll tell you a bar which is both got agadata and aloha. You'll both be happy. Pasuk says this is why it's Gemara's over here. If a fire goes out of masakosim, seitzeis me'atzma went up by itself. Meaning, who started this fire? Kiseitze sounds like it went by itself. Kiseitze means it went up by itself. And Rashi explains that we caused it. Because we didn't observe Hashem's mitzvahs, we caused the fire. In other words, Hashem said, I didn't start the fire, so to speak. It went out by itself, meaning the Jews started the fire. What does the pasuk going to say? The one who started the fire, he will pay for it. Even though I didn't start it, you started it, I will pay for it. I will make good on it. I'll take responsibility. That I caused, even though he didn't really cause it. I started the fire in Sion with the Korban. I started a fire in Sion and Zion, and it consumed its foundations. But eventually, I will repay it. I'll make good on what I've done, and I will build it in fire. I will be for you for a pillar of a wall of fire, suviv around, and as I'll protect you. And for honor, I will be in middle. So that's the drasha of Kiseitze. Again, Kiseitze means you started a fire in one place, it went somewhere else on its own. It spread, right? The fire, you would translate as if a fire spread. But spread from where? Because Kiseitze sounds like it went up by itself. Hashem didn't cause it, really. Rashi says, yeah, we caused it, but Hashem said it's as if I caused it and I take responsibility for it. So that's the drasha. And then he says, Pasach HaKasav, what's the Shmaita? That's the Agadata, right? Hashem said, I will make good on it. That's how you darshan it. The Shmaita, the halacha is Pasach HaKasav b'niske memono, meaning it starts off with this memono because kiseitze yesh. What does that mean? Memono is going to shehizik memono, the kiseitze mashma me'asma. I lit the fire in my property. I was burning down some trash or burning down something, and then the whole it went somewhere else. It's like I didn't do it directly; it went over there. I did it in I think it's my mama. My fire was here, and it went over there. It's like my animal was here, went over there, but it ends up a Simon is Gegufo, but it says Hamavir, right? It says like you say, your fire went out. Like my property went from my property went to your property and caused damage there. But what at the end it says Hamavir. Afterwards it calls it the Simon is Gegufo Shekaro Mavir Biadam. If I lit the fire myself, I burned it down. To teach me that Isha Mishum Chetzer, like we said before, that your fire is like your arrow. In what sense it's like your arrow? It's like you shot it yourself, that you damage, even though the damage is far away. I didn't touch the person myself when I shot an arrow or shot a bullet or artillery or whatever. I shot it, but it's like I did it myself. It's like I did it myself, my fire is myself. And Nachmir I'll be chayiv on the other Daled form. Besides Nezek, you also have to pay Nezek Tzari for Shevs and Boshes. David longed for something. He was in the middle of the war with the Plishtim. Vayomer, Mi Ishakeni Mayim Mi Bor Beis Lechem. Who will give me water from the pit in Beis Lechem? Asher B'Sha'ar, which is at the gate. Rashi means the Shar is the Sanhedrin, where they said the Ziknei Ashar, Sanhedrin the Ziknei Ashar. Who's going to give me water from there? Now that's the simple translation. But what does it mean? We'll see. Well, the pasuk goes on by Yivaku Shlosh or by Yivku Shlosh Zekiborim, 3 mighty where meant the Machne Plishtim. They broke through the plishtim wall, the plishtim line of the armor line. By Yishumayim before, and they drew water from the bore base lechem asher b'shah, and they drew water from there. Now that's a simple translation, but what does it really mean? It really means is that David wasn't looking for water; he was looking for halacha. He wanted to say, how am I going to find the halacha? I have to ask halacha of the Shiloh and the Sanhedrin. But the only way to do it was to take a risk. And three mighty men went through the battle lines to find out the halacha. And we'll see later on that they were wrong for doing that. Just finding out halacha, they shouldn't have taken a risk, a pikuach nefesh risk. They shouldn't have risked their lives for that. What was the question that he had? Amarava, and this is why the Gemara is here. Amarava, Taman Deish can be boiled. This question, when you spread a fire in somebody else's property and it destroys something that's hidden under that you can't see, it's not exposed. Are you chayav in that or not? Is Allah like a beauty? You are chayav. Then you're not chayav. So that was the shaila that he raised. So he had a shaila. Why did he have that shaila? Because some of his people, Ma'aseh Balafon Rashi says in the field that some people had burnt down a Jewish stack while they were in the war there. They were fighting a war, and some people burnt down a Jewish stack. And he wanted to know if there was something the people are chayav for burning it down if it wasn't necessary for the war, but are they chayav for Toman? They were posted the shaila. That was the question that was raised, and it's not important now what the psak was. We passed him like Rabbanim presumably, but they went and found the halach in Sanhedrin. The halach is that Toman is pot be'esh. Rav Huna Amar Gedishu the Sarm Havu the Sarm Yisrael Havu. What happened was this: there were some stacks of barley that belonged to Jewish people. The Plishtim were hiding among them. Here's my shaila. We're fighting a war over here. Can I save myself? Right? Can I escape? Or can I save myself by destroying by destroying somebody else's property? If I destroy somebody else's stacks, that will expose the Plishtim. They won't be able to hide there. Like a tunnel. They were tunneling under the stacks. So can I burn down the stacks that belong to Jewish property in order to expose the Plishtims? They won't be able to hide there. So this is the shaila that Rav David had, and these three Giborim went to ask the Sanhedrin, and they answered, you cannot use somebody else's property to protect yourself. But the fact is, you're a king, David. You can make any road you want. In other words, what do we call that? Eminent domain, right? You can go and take anything that he wants. You need a road for battle or for travel or for whatever it is, you could do. Nobody's allowed to stop you. So basically, you're not allowed to destroy somebody else's property and protect yourself. But you're the king. You do what you want. But Rav Meir, this is what happened. There were stacks of Jewish barley. There were stacks of the Philistines' lentils. Can I consume? Am I allowed? My animals need to eat. Can I have my animals consume the barley stacks of the Jews? Can they consume it? And I'll pay them back with the lentils of the Plishtim. Can I do that? Chavol Yoshev, Russia. The Russia returns the pledge, the collateral. Zayl he returned and he'll pay back for the stolen item. Even though he pays it back, Russia, he's still called the Russia. In other words, you're not allowed to take somebody else's stuff and pay him back with something else. You can't steal even if you're going to pay it back. But again, you're the king. You can do what you want. You can destroy whatever you want. So those were the three ways to learn what his question was and what the answer. If the question was to exchange the lentils for the Jewish barley, one pasuk says in Shmuel that the field was full of lentils, and the other pasuk is in describing the same incident in Divrei Yomim. Many times you find the steer between Nach and Divrei Yomim. In Divrei Yomim it says it was a field full of barley. So I understand why both fields are mentioned. As a field of barley, as a field of lentils, because that was the question. The question was, can I exchange one for the other? But the question was, can I burn down the second question? If I can burn down the barley in order to expose the Philistines, my boy, what do you need two psukim for? Why are there two psukim? We're only talking about barley. Because there were both kinds. The Jewish people had both barley stacks and lentil stacks. That's what it was. So that's why they're both mentioned in the Psukim in Daf Yomi and Shmuel respectively. If you say the question was, can he burn down the Jewish stacks in order to expose the Philistine? He stood there in that field, and he defended it. In other words, he felt, even though David, what was the psak that David got in these last two cases? You're really not allowed to. You're not allowed to save yourself. You're not allowed to change. But you're the king. You could do what you want. He didn't want to take advantage of that heter, and he stood there and he saved it. As if you say he saved it because he saved it from being burned down. But if the question was, can you exchange one for the other? And can his animals feed on the barley stacks and be pay them back with the lentil stacks? My Vayotzi was mean he saved it. So the Shabbat, because he didn't allow them to exchange it. He said, no, you can't feed, the animals cannot feed on the barley and pay back the Jewish owners of the barley with lentils. These last two reasons, I have two psukim. One is barley, one's lentil. Whatever the either for the exchange or pay them back or whatever. You can understand why there's two psukim. We're talking about consuming the barley or consuming the lentils. At the top of Samachal. If the question was Tamish, he simply had this question. Some of his people, some of David's troops, had burnt down somebody's area for whatever the reason was, and the question was, do you have to pay for Taman? Like my boy, Croy, what do we need this psukim at all for? What are the psukim talking about barley? The question was Taman Beish. What did the pasuk have to tell us? This one had barley. This one had lentils. The answer is he has to be. Even the one who says the question was about Taman, he also had. There were two questions there. One question was about Taman. One question was, can he burn it down to expose the plishtim, or can he burn it, or can the animals consume the barley in order and be paid back with the lentils? If you say these two reasons, David didn't want to take advantage of it. What does that mean? Amar, he said, given the ikisur, since basically it's usher to destroy somebody's property to save yourself or to pay them back with something else, you're not allowed to take something. I don't want to do it, even though I'm permitted as the king. I don't want to do that. I want to do it for the Mishur Sadim. If his question was Tam Beish, it's a Gemara, the Shalchalei. Milo Avad David, what does it mean? David didn't want to drink it. He didn't want to take advantage of it. What are you talking about? Just as a Mashaylo, they chayiv on Tam Beish or not. The answer is the law Amrinu Bishmayu. What did David not want to do? He didn't want to say the halacha in the name of those three people who brought back the halacha, who broke through the army lines. They broke the arms to get the halacha. Why? Because it wasn't right what they did. He had the shaila, but you're not risk your life to answer a shaila like that. Yes, you risk your life for something that's important, right? For something that's that you have to risk your life for, but not for this. This is a halacha that I've heard from Shmuel. If you find yourself, if you put yourself in danger, in physical danger, just to find out halacha, you don't say halacha in their name. Now, of course, it means we say, what do we say? We say that you have to kill yourself to learn. It doesn't mean literally kill yourself. Here, they were literally put themselves in danger, so you shouldn't say halacha in their name. And he poured them out. Hashem. What is that? If you say the reason was these shilas about the lentils and the stacks, he did l'shem shemayim. He poured himself out, meaning he was allowed to destroy the barley stacks because he's the king. But l'shem shemayim, he says, I don't want to do that. I don't want to take advantage. But if the simply had a shaila about is Talmud Eish chayiv or not, what does that mean that he poured him out l'shem? The Amrina Mishmar Gemara. He said it. It means that he did it. When he got the halacha and he said the Talmud Eish is chayiv or potter, he said it in the name of the Gemara, meaning in the name of the yeshiva, name of the lamdim. He didn't say it in so to speak in his name. He didn't take advantage of it. He certainly didn't say it in the name of the three people who risked their lives for that. All right, we'll pick it from here from tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem, from the Mishnah. Have a good day, everybody. Rumi, I'm very sorry about your brother-in-law. It's happening in one on top of another. Should hear good news.